I overheard my husband saying, "She's just a stepping stone. I'll leave her once the house is in my name." At the signing, I said, "Funny you mention that because it's in my sister's name now." He looked at me, panicked, and my sister smiled from across the room. I used to think betrayal was loud, that it came with yelling, throwing things, doors slamming shut. I thought it arrived like a storm, wild, chaotic, impossible to ignore. But when it came for me, it was quiet. It came on a Tuesday afternoon. Soft as a whisper. Serial as a secret you weren't supposed to hear. I was standing in the hallway of my own house, coat still on, purse half slipped off my shoulder. I hadn't meant to be home that early. A trip to my sister Marla's had ended sooner than I expected, and I figured I'd surprise Brent with takeout from that seafood place he liked. The bag was still in my hand when I heard his voice in the kitchen. He was laughing. That easy, almost boyish laugh he always used when he was trying to impress someone. I thought he was on the phone with one of the guys from work. But then I caught the words. Not all of them, just enough. She's just a stepping stone. Once the house is in my name. I'm out. Already got someone else lined up. Younger. Less baggage. There was a pause, then more laughter. She thinks we're building something. I'm just building equity. My first thought wasn't even anger. It was confusion. Like my ears had betrayed me. I stood frozen in place, staring at the wood grain of the hallway cabinet, and for a moment, I honestly wondered if I was dreaming or losing my mind. I stayed there for almost 5 minutes. Quiet. Still. Then I turned around and left. Never said a word. Let me back up. My name's Laura. I'm 48. Lived my whole life in North Carolina, mostly around Wilmington. I worked as a dental hygienist for over 2 decades until a neck issue, and frankly, burnout, led me to step away a few years ago. I used to think I'd go back once things calmed down. But they never did. Brent and I met at a 4th of July block party. One of those you've got to come events hosted by someone you barely know. He was newly divorced, had just moved into a rental up the street, and was charming in that modest, southern way that made everyone's dad like him instantly. He helped carry the cooler in, offered to man the grill, and talked about his work in residential construction like it was something noble. He wasn't flashy. No expensive car or cologne. Just a good handshake, decent teeth, and a voice that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. After years of failed dates and short-lived relationships, that felt like enough. We married a little less than 2 years later. My parents adored him. So did most of my friends. Brent always knew the right thing to say. He was dependable. Present. Not passionate, not wild, but steady. After a while, you start to think that's more important than sparks. And for a while, it was. We rented a small duplex near the Cape Fear River. Nothing fancy, but the kind of place that smelled like coffee in the morning and felt safe at night. Brent wasn't interested in buying. Said it was too much trouble, especially after his last divorce. I didn't push it. I was happy just to have peace. Then the pandemic hit. That tiny place felt even smaller when you're locked down together for months. Every creak of the floorboards started to feel louder. Every sigh a little heavier. That's when he started talking about buying a house. Said we needed more space, a real yard, maybe a workshop out back for his tools. It was the first time I saw him excited in months. We found a place just outside Wilmington, older, worn, but charming. Needed work. Brent lit up the moment we walked in. Said he saw potential. I thought he meant us. We closed in May. Renovations started not long after. At first, it was fun. Picking out paint colors, arguing over hardware finishes, watching the bones of the house come alive again. But little things started to feel off. Brent was working later. Coming home tired. Saying he had to check on crews or fix problems himself. He wasn't mean. Just distracted. Distant. The kind of distance you don't notice until it's already a canyon. We stopped talking like we used to. Dinner was quiet. Bedtime routine turned into brushing teeth in separate bathrooms and scrolling through phones without looking up. Still, I told myself it was the stress. Renovations are hard. Owning a home is hard. Marriage is hard. I'd been taught that love was work, and I believed I just needed to work harder. But then I overheard that conversation in the kitchen. And everything cracked. I drove straight to Marla's. She's my younger sister by 3 years, and the complete opposite of me in most ways, louder, funnier, way more direct. We'd grown closer over the years, especially after her own ugly divorce. When I walked into her kitchen that night, she didn't ask questions. Just handed me a blanket and poured 2 glasses of wine. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry yet. Just hollow. Like I'd stepped out of my body and left someone else to live in my skin. I told her what I heard. Every word. She sat back and said nothing for a minute, just tapped her fingernail on the glass. Then she asked, "Do you want to burn it all down?" That was the moment something shifted. Not rage. Not revenge. Just clarity. Yes, I said. Over the next few weeks, I smiled through dinners. Played the supportive wife. Watched him measure drywall and talk about our forever home with that same old smile. What he didn't know was that I had started meeting with a lawyer. A friend of Marla's. What he also didn't know was that when we first applied for the mortgage, Brent's credit had been so bad, we had to put the loan entirely in my name. I didn't think much of it then. I trusted him. Big mistake. He asked later that year if we could fix it and add his name to the deed. Said it would protect us both legally in case something happened. I nodded, agreed, played dumb. Meanwhile, I quietly filed papers to transfer the deed, not to him, but to Marla. Complicated? Yes. Legal? Also yes. Expensive? Very. Worth it? Absolutely. I timed everything to align with our scheduled signing in January. The morning of the meeting, I made Brent breakfast, his favorite. Eggs, hash browns, and black coffee. He thanked me with a kiss on the forehead. Told me we were almost there. He had no idea. When we walked into the office, I felt strangely calm. The paralegal slid the papers across the table. Brent glanced down, then frowned. His lips moved as he read. Then he looked up, confused. "This says Marla Everstone." I just nodded. He blinked, clearly not understanding. Why would it say that? Because the house is in her name now. The silence that followed was deafening. He looked at me like I'd just spoken another language. Like he couldn't compute it. What is this? My voice didn't shake. This is you building equity. The weeks after Brent left felt like someone had taken a sponge to my life and squeezed out everything that used to fill it. Noise, routine, expectations, all of it gone, wrung dry. What was left was this strange kind of stillness. And to be honest, I didn't hate it. At first, I moved through the days like a shadow. I'd wake up early, make coffee, stare out the little window above Marla's garage, and listen to the morning birds. I hadn't noticed birds in years. Not really. I'd sit there, letting the coffee go cold while I thought about everything I had believed about my life. About Brent. About myself. We tell ourselves stories, don't we? About who we are, what we deserve, what love should look like. I told myself that Brent and I were partners. That we were building something. But the truth is, I was building and he was watching. And when the foundation was sturdy enough, he was planning to walk away and let someone else enjoy it. Marla kept her distance at first. She knew I needed space. But every few days she'd drop by with something small, a basket of clean towels, a homemade soup, once even a bag of those little lemon cookies I liked from the downtown bakery. She never said much. Just left them on the steps and waved. It wasn't until the second month that I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Brent had sucked the fight out of me long before he ever picked up the phone and called someone else about a younger, no-drama replacement. What remained wasn't rage, it was relief. Quiet and steady, like an exhale I'd been holding in for years. But life has a funny way of not letting you stay still too long. One morning in March, Marla knocked on my door. "He's back in town," she said. I didn't ask who. I knew. Where? Saw him at the Food Lion off Oleander. He didn't see me. He looks like SHT. I let that sit for a moment. She added, "He's driving a different car. Not the truck. Something cheap. Like a rental." I didn't respond right away. Just poured another cup of coffee. "He's trying to get back into the construction game," she said. "Word is, the girl he left you for? She dumped him. Pretty quickly, too." That didn't surprise me. Brent had built his whole charm around stability. When that crumbled, he didn't have much else to stand on. I asked, "You think he's coming to see me?" She shrugged. "Don't know. But he's sniffing around. So I thought you should know." "Thanks," I said. That afternoon, I checked my email for the first time in weeks. There was a message from him. Just one line, "Can we talk?" No signature. No fluff. Just that. I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. About a week later, I ran into his cousin at the farmer's market. Camilla. Sweet girl. Always liked her. She hugged me tightly and said, "I don't know what happened, but good for you." I smiled, unsure what to say. She leaned in. "He's been asking around. Looking for work. Couch surfing, I think. Nobody wants to hire him. People talk. About what? She looked around, lowered her voice. That whole thing with the house. Word got out. Somebody said you outplayed him. They're calling it the Hallie flip. It's kind of a running joke. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I just nodded. When I got home, there was a folded piece of paper tucked under the door. Lara, I'm sorry. Can we meet? Please. One conversation. I stared at the paper for a long time. My stomach did this slow turn not from nerves, but from recognition. I knew that handwriting too well. And I knew exactly what he wanted. He didn't miss me. He missed stability. He missed comfort. He missed the version of me who didn't know better. I put the note on the counter and made dinner. Weeks passed. The house finally sold in April. We got a decent price. The market was cooling, but the work we'd done made it appealing. I let Marla handle the realtor. When the check cleared, I felt nothing. Not joy, not sorrow, just finality. With the money from the sale, I paid off my car, donated a bunch to the women's shelter Marla volunteers at, and tucked the rest away. For the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone anything. That freedom? It's addicting. I started dreaming again. Not in the sleep sense, I mean real dreams. Wants. Ideas. Things I used to tell myself were silly. I enrolled in a weekend course in Raleigh. Took a day trip to Asheville. Got a part-time job at a little holistic shop run by a woman named Dory who smells like eucalyptus and tells the best jokes. I met people. Different kinds of people. People who listened. People who didn't need me to shrink myself to make them comfortable. But still, Brent lingered like smoke. Not always visible, but there. A smell in the air. A reminder of what once burned. He texted again in May. I understand now. I do. I wasn't fair to you. I just want you to be okay. That time, I did reply. I am. No punctuation. No anger. Just a fact. He didn't write again after that. It didn't take long for the rhythm of the new place to settle in. There was something calming about the simplicity of it, an old ceiling fan that hummed all night, windows that creaked when you opened them, a front stoop that caught the last of the sun around 5:30. I found myself looking forward to those slanted gold beams in the evening. It made the place feel like it was trying to hug me. I kept to myself mostly. Not out of sadness anymore, just peace. I'd walk to the farmer's market on Saturdays. Sit with a coffee outside the second-hand bookshop and people watch. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since before Brent. Just quick entries. Observations. Feelings I didn't know I had until I saw them on paper. Dory, the woman I worked with at the holistic shop, had become something of a friend. She was in her early 60s, lived with 2 bulldogs and a husband who made pottery in their backyard. She always smelled like lavender and swore by lemon balm for everything from stress to nightmares. Some days I believed her. Others, I just liked hearing her talk. One morning, while I was unpacking a shipment of beeswax candles, she looked up from the register and said, "You're starting to smile with your eyes again." I didn't know what to say to that, but it stayed with me. By August, the nightmares had finally stopped. For months after Brent left, I'd wake up sweating, dreaming that I was back in that house, painting walls, cooking dinner, talking to a man whose face I couldn't see but whose voice I knew too well. In the dreams, I was always trying to get his attention. Always trying to fix something. I'd wake up exhausted, heart pounding, even though the room around me was quiet and calm. But now, my sleep was deep, dreamless, like my mind had finally handed in the weight it had been carrying around for years. I started taking walks in the evenings, just around the block, sometimes down to the park where kids played and couples jogged and the air smelled like grass and pavement. I liked watching people move. Everyone going somewhere. Doing something. It made me feel like I was part of the world again. Sometimes I'd think about Brent, not as someone I missed, but like a character in a book I'd finished. I knew the plot, the twist, the ending. I didn't need to reread it. Then one afternoon in late September, I saw him. I was at the grocery store, standing in front of the rotisserie chickens, debating between lemon pepper and barbecue, when I felt someone walk up behind me. You know how sometimes your skin just knows? I turned, and there he was. Brent. He looked older. Not old, but older. Like life had finally left a few marks on him. He'd lost some weight. Had a bit of stubble. He was wearing a wrinkled polo shirt and jeans that didn't quite fit right. His eyes landed on me, and I saw it, the flicker of recognition, then something else. Regret. "Laura," he said, like it was a prayer and a curse all at once. I nodded. Brent. We stood there for a moment, Two strangers in a refrigerated aisle, pretending we weren't once married. Pretending our history wasn't hanging in the air like fog. "You look good," he said. "Thanks," I replied. "You look different." He laughed softly. It wasn't bitter. Just sad. "Yeah, life's been different lately." I nodded again, not really wanting to ask what he meant. "I've thought about reaching out," he said. "You did?" "I mean really reaching out. Talking." I waited. I was a mess," he said. "I didn't handle things right." "That's true," I said. "Not CRL. Just honest." He looked down at his shoes. "I thought I had time." "I thought you'd wait." "I did," I said. "Longer than I should have." We stood there in silence for a few seconds. I could feel the cold from the fridge seeping through my sleeves. "I'm sorry," he said. I nodded. "I believe you." He looked surprised. "I just don't care anymore," I added. That was the truth. Not meant to hurt him. Just a fact. He stepped back, like the words had landed harder than he expected. "Are you happy?" I thought about the cat curled up in my window. The warm light in my kitchen. The way my chest didn't tighten every time my phone buzzed anymore. "Yes," I said. "I am." He nodded slowly, like he was letting go of something. "Well," he said. "Take care, Laura." "You too, Brent." And that was it. He turned and walked away. I watched him disappear down the next aisle, past the cleaning supplies, like a chapter closing on its own. That night, I called Marla. "Guess who I saw today?" "Oh God, who?" "Brent." She paused. "Did you punch him?" "No," I laughed. "We talked." "Sort of." And it was fine." I was fine. There was a long pause on her end. "I'm proud of you, you know." I blinked fast. "Thanks. You're not who you were a year ago." "I know," I said. "Thank God." The fall came in soft, gold layers. My little rental had a maple tree in the front yard, and every morning I'd open the blinds and see the leaves slowly shift from green to amber. There was something about that slow change that felt right. Like everything was allowed to transform without apology. Work at the holistic shop picked up, holiday season was coming, and people suddenly remembered they liked candles and teas. Dory had me putting together gift baskets, arranging shelves, even leading a few little workshops on stress relief and clean eating. She said I had a calm presence. Funny, I never used to be called calm. Brent had once described me as tense but sweet. Like I was trying too hard to be likable. Not anymore. One Saturday morning, I was helping a customer pick out an herbal sleep blend when Dory waved me over. "There's a guy here asking for you," she said, lowering her voice. My stomach didn't drop. That was the first good sign. Out front, leaning awkwardly near the doorway, was a man in a collared shirt and khakis, Brent. He looked nervous. Not fake nervous, not the kind he used to pull when he wanted something. Genuinely uncertain. He nodded when he saw me. "Hey," he said. "I didn't mean to ambush you at work. What do you need, Brent?" He swallowed. "I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk. Just over coffee. Not to rehash. Just to tell you something." I paused. He must have taken that as a maybe. "I've been thinking a lot," he said. "About everything. And I realized I owe you more than an apology. I owe you an explanation." I looked past him, at the display window we'd just decorated with eucalyptus garlands. I thought about the woman I used to be. The way I would have dropped everything to hear whatever excuse he had ready. But I wasn't her anymore. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "But if you need to say something for you, then fine. There's a cafe 2 doors down. You've got 10 minutes. We sat at a small table by the window. He ordered black coffee. I didn't order anything, just waited. "I was selfish," he said, hands wrapped around the mug. "I thought you were holding me back. I thought if I had the house in my name, I could finally start over. Be someone bigger. But everything I built was because you were the one behind it. The house, the stability, the reputation. Without you, it all fell apart." He didn't cry. He didn't plead. Just laid it all out like a man who had run out of performances. "Thank you for making sure I didn't get what I wanted," he said finally. "Because I didn't deserve it." I let that sit there. Watched people pass outside the cafe. A little boy dragging a balloon. A woman walking 2 beagles. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just don't care anymore." He nodded. That stung him more than any CREL word could. "I'm trying to be better," he said. "Good," I replied. "You'll need to be. Because the only person left to live with now is yourself." I stood up, smoothed my jacket. He didn't follow me. Just watched me go, like a man realizing he'd finally lost the last thing he didn't know how to keep. 6 months later, I bought a house. Not big. Just a little cottage on the edge of town with a porch swing and raised garden beds. The kind of place that doesn't need to impress anyone. It was in my name. Only mine. Marla brought wine on moving day. Dory brought homemade bread. Even Tux seemed to strut around like he owned the place. As I stood there that evening, a box of dishes still unopened on the floor, I looked around and smiled. Not because I had one, but because I'd stopped playing his game entirely. And that, in the end, was the best kind of revenge. Real, quiet joy. The kind no one can take away. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are and never needing to prove it again. A year later, I was in the garden pulling weeds when I got a letter. Not a bill. Not junk. An actual handwritten letter. The kind people don't send anymore unless they mean it. It was from Brent. I sat on the back step and read it twice. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't try to rewrite history. He just wrote about what life had been like for him since we last spoke. About the therapy he'd started, the job he'd lost, the apartment that didn't feel like home. And then, in one short paragraph, he said something I never expected. I used to think love was about possession. About winning. Now I know that real love never tries to own anything. It only gives. And I had no idea how to give until it was too late. I'm sorry I treated you like a rung on a ladder I thought I was climbing. Turns out, I was already at the top when I was with you. I folded the letter and tucked it into the back of my old recipe book, between the pages with my grandmother's biscuit instructions. Not because I wanted to remember his words forever, but because it reminded me of who I used to be, and how far I'd come. That night, I made a simple dinner. Lit one of the beeswax candles from the shop. Tuck's pot at the window like always, chasing shadows. Marla called just to say she missed my spaghetti and asked when she could come over. Next weekend, I told her. Bring that awful wine you like. And as I washed the dishes under warm water, the window above the sink cracked open to the breeze. I felt something settle deep in my chest. Not closure. That was never the goal. But peace.